What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the Adventure Outpost, your hub for all things movies. Another weekend has come and gone, and it is once again time to talk those juicy box office numbers. We had two big new releases this weekend, and the whole question on everybody's mind was going to be, was Avatar going to finally be dethroned in this week? He was coming up against stiff competition from the latest M. Night Shyamalan movie and from Tom Brady's epic sports movie, 80 for Brady. So all eyes were peeled to see what Avatar was going to put up against these two movies, and we're going to dive into all of that here right now. We are going to dive into that top 10 and take a look here at the box office for the weekend. We were up 12% over last weekend. It was a good weekend here compared to what we've been doing here in January. January was a slippery slope, just diving off from the beginning of January, just getting lower and lower. Finally, in the first week of February, we were about, and we put a stop to it, and we were able to now once again go back onto the uptick, and we're slowly inching our way back to hopefully another $100 million weekend as Ant-Man approaches. This past weekend in the top 10, we were able to do $69 million, so that was up 12% over the previous week. But now we're going to waste no more time, and we're going to dive right into that top 10, and we're going to see, is Avatar number one, or was something able to finally dethrone it? Let's go to the charts. And we take a look here, and it is time for a big win. After 7 weeks at number one, Avatar was not only knocked out of first place, but it drops all the way down to third place for this weekend. Both the new movies were able to go and inch its way ahead of Avatar in its 8th week of release. We have the king for the weekend at number one, M. Night Shyamalan, once again with another number one new movie. Knock at the Cabin is number one, taking in $14 million off of a $20 million budget. It's still not terrible. We're going to take a look at some M. Night Shyamalan information later as we go through, but $14 million, not a bad opening weekend for it, especially for a movie in February. It was tracking more towards a $20 million opening, so it is coming in a little bit shorter. The reviews, I think, are hurting it. I think it definitely didn't help that this weekend up here in the Northeast, at least, was one of the coldest fucking weekends I've ever felt in my entire life. It was absolutely horrible to even step outside, so I'm sure that did not help this movie's total, especially around here in the metropolitan area. I'm sure that hurt its numbers a little bit, but we'll get more into M. Night Shyamalan stuff as we go later. We take a look here back now, though. In number two, at second place, is the 80 for Brady movie. It takes in $12 million off of a $28 million budget. This was the movie that they were expecting to come and settle for third, that Avatar would take second behind Knock at the Cabin, and 80 for Brady would take third. But the movie managed to do enough business and imagined to get enough butts in the seat to overpass Avatar and settle for second place. I thought this would be another movie that would be hurt immensely by the cold weather from this past weekend, especially since it is a movie about the New England Patriots, and Tom Brady and the Northeast was absolutely fucking decimated by that weather. So you would have thought the movie would have taken a big hit, but nope, it manages to hold here in second place. Avatar: The Way of Water, in its 8th week, has to settle for third place for the first time outside of number one. It drops 32.4%. Still, though, takes in almost $11 million, $10.8 million. It's still bringing in absolutely ridiculous totals. It brings its total domestic haul to $636 million off of a $460 million budget. Avatar is another movie, as always, week to week, that we continue to talk about because it continues to smash through barriers, it continues to break records, and it continues to just make a shitload of fucking money. In fourth place, another movie, still holdover from 2022, that is still making ridiculous sums of money, is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. In its 7th week, dropping 24.3%, but still it takes in almost $8 million to bring its total domestic haul to $151 million off of a $90 million budget. This is another movie week to week that just continues to have incredible legs, just continues to hold over very well. I know at my theater, it just continues to do fucking business. I don't know what it was once the new year hit, but everyone was just suddenly like, whoa, this movie's fucking great, let's go see it. And they have. And rounding out in the top 5 is a movie that has a title that is very uncomfortable to me, is BTS Yet to Come in Cinemas. That is an awkward title. I'm not going to explain why, but if you listen to it, I think you can understand why. But it takes in 5th place. It brings in $6.2 million. We have no idea what the budget is. This is just another in a long line of just concert movies that are just exploding on the moment, having their moment in the sun. We probably won't see this again next week, especially with more new movies being released. So enjoy your time. coming in cinemas while you can, BTS, because I'm sure that you're going to be dried up come next week. Rounding out now, we look here back at this bottom five. We got in sixth place A Man Called Otto in its sixth week, dropping 37.2%, bringing in $4 million to bring its total domestic haul to $53 million off of a $50 million budget. So at least domestically, this movie has hit the break-even point, and it is now printed money. I'm sure worldwide it's made itself a little bit more of a little bunch of greenbacks there, but for now, I always like to look at and see, is it able to make its budget back domestically? That is the bottom line that I look for. So it's good to see that A Man Called Otto is firmly now in the green. In seventh place is Megan in its fifth week, dropping 39.3%, taking in $3.8 million to bring its total domestic haul to $87 million off of a $12 million budget. I don't think this is going to have that last little bit that it needs to become the first blockbuster movie of 2023. It's going to be close, but I think it's just not going to cut the mustard. I think it's slowly dropping down the ranks, and I think next week with Magic Mike and Titanic, and then the week after that with Ant-Man, and the week after that with Cocaine Bear, I think Megan's Day in the Sun is firmly setting, and I think, if anything, it might probably top out at 95 if it's lucky to get to there, and I think that's where it's going to end up settling. In eighth place is the movie Missing in its third week, dropping 34.3%, taking in $3.7 million to bring its total domestic haul to $23 million off of a $7 million budget. That movie made itself a nice chunk of cheddar. It's in, it's out. We probably won't see it for too much longer, but it did what it needed to do. And now a movie that somehow, at its 12th week, decided to get re-released back in theaters and is just showing up again. It was in for 1, I think, or 2 weeks back in December, and now suddenly, whoever the gods decided that Jesus must be chosen once again. The Chosen, at 12 weeks, shows back up in the top 10, took in $3.6 million to bring its total to $18 million off of a budget that we have no idea, mostly because this is a TV show just showing its first 2 episodes. But good on you guys to continuously, it looks like once a month, just put this out and just make a few $1 million. Good for you. And then rounding out the top 10 is the movie Pathan. Forgive me if I pronounce that incorrectly. In its second week, dropped 60.6%. That is a huge drop off. It was at number 5th last weekend, I believe. Now it drops down to number 10. I'm sure next week would just disappear completely. But it took in $2.7 million to bring its total domestic haul to $14 million off of a budget that we have no idea about. Now, we talked before about taking a look once more at some more M. Night Shyamalan things that we want to see, and I wanted to take a look at where Knock at the Cabin ended on his opening weekends of all time. Was it able to be one of his bigger ones? Where did it end up settling? And it ended up not being where I expected it to be. I thought it was going to end up somewhere in the middle, and it turns out that it was much worse than that. If we really look at it, it's unadjusted for inflation, and we're just looking at strictly his opening weekends from when they came out. Knock at the Cabin is actually his worst opening weekend, and that takes into account movies like Lady in the Water, The Last Airbender, The Visit's actually amazing, not The Visit, The After Earth, just a lot of like stinkers in his repertoire, but Knock at the Cabin is actually his worst opening weekend thus far in his career. I actually just got back from the theater from seeing it, and it's a solid movie. I don't think it deserves to be the least grossing opening weekend of his career, but hey, that's the box office for you. It does not give a fuck what you think about the movie, only what the perceived notion is of it and what's going to get asses in the seats, and Knock at the Cabin did not get those asses in the seats. So we're going to take a look here at the chart. This is all of his movies and what their opening weekends did, and we're going to take a look here right now. If we look and you see Knock at the Cabin firmly in last place with a $14 million opening weekend, Old right ahead of that with 16, Lady in the Water right ahead of that with 18, The Visit with 25, The Sixth Sense sitting pretty in the middle with 26. After Earth somehow drummed up 27 million. The Happening somehow drummed up 30 million. Actually, I shouldn't say somehow, because I was, I think, freshman in college when that came out. My dumbass spent money to go see that movie. Unbreakable also with 30 million. Right ahead of that, Glass and Split and Last Airbender also all made 40 million apiece. They were separated by mere pennies. And then in second place, you had The Village. That's got some of my hard-earned money. I went and saw that with 50 million. And then Signs is his number one highest grossing opening weekend with 60 million. That is another movie that I went and saw and spent my hard-earned cash at. Or I should say my parents' hard-earned cash, because Signs was, 2002? So I was probably 12 years old. So I probably took their hard-earned money that they gave as an allowance to go see that movie. So I've given some money to M. Night there. So you're welcome for those totals, man. I'm sorry that Knock at the Cabin's not going to be a better one for you. But hey, box office is not indicative of the actual quality of a movie. Just look at The Last Airbender, who's somehow your third best opening weekend, making $40 million, and that movie is a piece of trash. Now, as always, we like to take a look at our top 10 domestic and our top 10 worldwide. As always, we are still looking at 2022 because we still have Avatar and Black Panther still putting up some money in theaters, so we continue to chart those progresses before we bid adieu to 2022. So we'll take a look here first at our top 10 highest grossing. I am all over the place with words. We're going to take a look at our top 10 worldwide first for 2022. Let's take a look at the chart. And as you see on there, everything is mostly still in the same spot. Moon Man at the back, Watergate Bridge, Thor Love and Thunder, The Batman, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, while still making money, is firmly set in that spot in 6th place. It's at this point right now at $842 million. I'm sure it's going to continue. It might even get up to $850 by the time it finally leaves theater, but there's no way it's getting any near close or passing Minions Rise of Gru. So that's where Black Panther is going to settle, but we will keep charting along as it continues to make money. Minions Rise of Gru is right ahead of that. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Jurassic World in 3rd place with $1 billion. Top Gun Maverick in 2nd place with $1.4 billion. And then Avatar The Way of Water continuing to just decimate. It sits at number 1 with $2.1 billion. It is making just stupid money. And then we take a look at our top 10 worldwide for 2023. You have in 1st place Full River Red with $590 million. The Wandering Earth 2, even though it dipped out of the top 10, still has put up almost $500 million, $497 million. Boonie Bears passed Megan to hit $186 million. Megan, the only movie from the US still currently in the top 10 worldwide with $158 million. Hidden Blade right behind that with $115. Pathan at 98, Deep Sea at 98, Cheburashka, I'm probably butchering that, at 75, 500 Miles at 46, and Varisu at 35. And then now we take a look at our top 10 domestic for 2022. We'll look here at the chart. Black Adam still bringing up the rear. You got Sonic the Hedgehog right ahead of that. Thor Love and Thunder, The Batman, Minions Rise of Gru, Jurassic World, and Doctor Strange all not changing any positions. Neither is anything else, but Black Panther still settling here in 3rd place, taking in 453 right now domestically. I think that's about where it's going to peter out as well. Avatar The Way of Water is at $636 million. I don't think it's going to have that muster to quite break Top Gun. So at least domestically, Top Gun is still going to be top dog with $718 million. But Avatar The Way of Water still $636 million is a fucking insane total. It is a total that we're actually going to talk about in a little bit when we talk about just some more records that Avatar is breaking. But for now, it's settling in the top 10 domestic of 2022 for 2nd place. And then as always, we take a look here domestically at the 2023. And right there, now at the bottom, we got Infinity Pool making $4 million. House Party right ahead of that at 8. 80 for Brady debuting on the list with $12.5 million. Knock for the Cabin right ahead of that at $14 million. Missing in 3rd place with $23 million. Plane in 2nd at $28 million. And Megan is top dog right now with $87 million. Now, as always here on the charts, we'd like to take a look at our fallen heroes. These are our heroes that did their time at the box office. They had their say, but now they've moved on to greener passages. We had another 4 movies this week that had bowed out of the top 10. They are as follows. We take a look here. Left Behind, Rise of the Antichrist, after 1 week on the chart, bows out. Infinity Pool, after 1 week on the chart, bows out. Plane, after 3 weeks, has now bowed out. And The Wandering Earth 2, after 1 week, has also bowed out. You guys had your say. You did your due. You made your money. You put up your fight. But now it's time to say adieu to you. And as always, we salute you. Now, speaking of Avatar, we like to always keep a look now on its highest grossing of all time and just seeing how high it is climbing, both worldwide and domestic. We'll take a look here first at worldwide. You take a look here at the chart for highest worldwide grossers of all time. There's still no change on this list. Avatar still sitting pretty in the 4th spot, but it is slowly bridging that gap between Titanic. There is right now Titanic sitting at $2.187 billion. Avatar: The Way of Water is at 2.174. So I would say if Titanic wasn't getting a re-release next week, that Avatar: The Way of Water was firmly going to pass this. But now I'm not so sure. It all depends on how well Titanic is going to end up doing next week. It is insane to think that next week we're going to have both Avatar: The Way of Water and Titanic in theaters at the same time putting up business. It is going to be interesting to see when the dust settles and all is clear just where these two movies lie. Will Titanic still remain in third and Avatar in fourth? Will they jockey for position the next few weeks, or will Avatar firmly just put it in the rearview mirror and settle for third as it tries to inch closer to Avengers Endgame? And then we take a look at now a new list that Avatar is firmly joining, and that is the highest domestic grossers of all time. And Avatar: The Way of Water, looking here at this chart, has now made enough to put it at number 10 as the 10th highest grossing domestic movie of all time. You take a look right there at the chart. It is in 10th place with 636 million. Does not have too much further to go to pass Jurassic World at 653. So I would say within the next week or two, it is firmly going to pass that. And then the next question will be, again, there's Titanic in sights with 659. Are they going to be jockeying for position throughout the next few weeks? It's going to be a very exciting time the next few weeks to watch and see what those two end up doing. And then you see right ahead of that, Avengers Infinity War with 678, Black Panther with 700, Top Gun Maverick right there at 718. So Avatar is still a ways to go if it wants to pass Top Gun Maverick. The first Avatar is right there in fourth with 785. Spider-Man No Way Home in third place with 814 million. It is insane what that movie made domestically, especially right during the Omicron variant. That is just insanely impressive. Avengers Endgame in second place with 858. And Star Wars Episode 7 still the highest grossing. No one's even been able to touch it with $936 million. And now one last chart we're going to look at and see. We had it for right now. The movies that held number one for more than 1 week in 2023, it was Avatar all the way. It held on for 7 consecutive weeks. That is the first time a movie has held 7 consecutive weekends since the first Avatar. So it is just amazing to behold what these movies are able to do when they are released onto cinemas. They just have an absolute stranglehold on cinemas, and they are an absolutely impressive display that is just got to be seen to be believed. It's just so wild that it was able to repeat that success from the first one and hold on to 7 consecutive weekends. The most interesting thing to see now will be, will it be able to reclaim number one in any weekends going forward? If we take a look now, if you look next weekend, really all that's being released is Magic Mike's Last Dance and the re-release of Titanic. Knock at the Cabin with its reviews isn't going to put up much of a fight next week, and same goes for 80 for Brady. So it's going to be interesting to see if it's able to repeat itself and pop up for number one at any point within the next few weeks. Probably not. I would say if Ant-Man wasn't coming out, it would be a possibility. But with Ant-Man coming out, I think it's all but fair that Ant-Man's probably going to have the next stranglehold. And then once you get to March, it's just movie after movie after movie. So I think it might be the swan song for Avatar. I think if it has any shot of reclaiming number one, it's going to be next weekend. I think it's a huge long shot, but just like everything else, I would not be surprised to see Avatar pull out one last hat trick and reclaim number one for one last time. And that'll do it for all of us here at the charts for this weekend. It was a fun weekend to chart along with. It was some pretty exciting shakeups. We finally saw Avatar get dethroned. We saw M. Night Shyamalan with another number one hit. You saw 80 for Brady overperform and manage to overtake Avatar. Some wild stuff going on at the box office this weekend, and it's only going to get crazier going forward from here. There is a lot of stuff coming out for the next few weeks. Next weekend, we've got Magic Mike's Last Dance. We've got the re-release of Titanic. The weekend after that, you've got Ant-Man. The weekend after that, we've got Cocaine Bear. March is fucking stacked with movies between Creed 3, Scream 6, 65, John Wick Chapter 4, Dungeons and Dragons. It seems every week something huge is coming out in March, and then when you cap it off with the first week of April with the Super Mario Brothers, and then it's only after that that we get to breathe for a few weeks before May kicks off with the summer movie season and Guardians. So I feel like there's not many more dead weekends left. Like, it is about to just be full steam ahead. 2023 is about to get fucking crazy, and it is going to be awesome to follow and chart along here at the box office. So be sure to check back week to week and follow along with us as we go through and we see just how crazy the box office is going to get in 2023. But that'll do it for all of us here today. Until the next adventure, you have been you, I have been me. These are the movies that we love so much, and as always, I'll see you at the movies.